The night a pearl outsold everyone's expectations inside the Bourbon-Parma jewel auction. A single pearl, expected to fetch about $2 million, ended a bidding war 18 times higher than anyone predicted. On a November evening in Geneva in 2018, a small drop-shaped pearl, once clasped around the neck of a doomed French queen, sold for more than $36 million. Turning what auctioneers had modestly forecast as a $7 million sale into a $53 million spectacle, and setting a new world record for royal jewelry in the process. The jewels had waited more than 2 centuries in a single family's private hands, passed quietly from generation to generation through revolution, exile, and the slow collapse of 2 separate European empires. They needed only one night at Sotheby's to become some of the most talked about objects in the history of the auction house, their stories suddenly reaching an audience of millions who had never previously heard of the House of Bourbon-Parma at all. The pieces at the center of this story belong to the House of Bourbon-Parma, a branch of the wider Bourbon dynasty that once ruled France, Spain, and the Italian Duchy of Parma before revolutions and shifting borders stripped most of its members of their thrones over the course of the 19th and 20th centuries. Despite losing political power, the family managed to hold on to an extraordinary private jewelry collection built up across roughly 200 years through inheritance, marriage, and a handful of extraordinarily consequential historical accidents. The most consequential of those accidents traces back to the French Revolution itself, as Queen Marie Antoinette and King Louis V prepared their ill-fated attempt to flee the besieged Tuileries Palace in 1791. Some of the Queen's most valuable jewels were packed up in secret and smuggled out of France, eventually making their way to Vienna, where the reigning Holy Roman Emperor happened to be Marie Antoinette's own nephew. He returned the jewels to the couple's only surviving child, Marie Therese de France, known as Madame Royale, in 1795, several years after her parents had both been executed by revolutionary tribunal in 1793. Madame Royale, who had no surviving children of her own, eventually bequeathed this portion of her inheritance to her niece, the Duchess of Parma, and from there the jewels passed down through successive generations of the Bourbon-Parma family for well over a century, quietly, privately, and almost entirely out of public view, changing hands through ordinary inheritance rather than sale for the better part of 200 years. Alongside the Marie Antoinette pieces, the collection that eventually reached auction also included jewelry connected to other branches of the family's history, pieces belonging to the Duke of Berry, a son of King Charles VI of France, the last reigning senior-line Bourbon monarch of France. Jewels connected to the Duchess of Angoulême, Marie Antoinette's own daughter, Madame Royale herself, who as an adult carried both the title and a portion of her mother's legacy through the turbulent decades of the Bourbon Restoration and subsequent exile, and a substantial group of 20th century pieces belonging to Archduchess Maria Anna of Austria, who married into the Bourbon-Parma family in the early 1900s and brought with her jewelry reflecting the Austro-Hungarian imperial court of the same period, an entirely separate and considerably more recent aristocratic tradition layered on top of the older French Bourbon inheritance. Taken together, the full collection offered at auction spanned roughly 2.5 centuries of continental European royal history in a single, unbroken family line, an unusually complete and well-documented span for any private jewelry collection of this age, encompassing the fall of the French monarchy, the collapse of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and the slow 20th century fading of hereditary rule across most of the continent. If any single figure gives this collection its emotional and historical weight, it is Marie Antoinette herself, Queen Consort of France from 1774 until the monarchy's abolition in 1792, and one of the most instantly recognizable royal figures in Western history, largely because of the sheer scale of both her personal extravagance and her eventual downfall. Born an Austrian archduchess and married into the French throne at just 14 years old as part of a diplomatic alliance between the Habsburg and Bourbon dynasties, she developed a lifelong and well-documented passion for pearls and diamonds. Appearing in virtually every formal portrait painted before her imprisonment adorned in exactly the kind of jewelry later sold at this auction. Contemporary accounts and later historians alike have long treated her wardrobe and jewelry collection as inseparable from her broader public image, one that swung within the span of a single decade. From the height of continental fashion influence to a symbol of royal excess blamed, fairly or not, for contributing to the financial pressures that helped ignite revolution. Her arrest during the revolution, her trial for treason, and her execution by guillotine in October 1793 turned her, almost immediately, into one of history's most mythologized royal figures. And that mythology has only deepened the market value of anything that can be reliably tied back to her personal possession. A phenomenon this very auction demonstrated in dramatic fashion more than 2 centuries later. The person who actually carried these jewels safely through the chaos of revolution and into the modern era, however, was not Marie Antoinette but her daughter. Marie Therese de France survived years of imprisonment in the Temple prison in Paris, watching her parents and younger brother die in captivity, before eventually being released in a prisoner exchange and living out much of her later life in exile as the Duchess of Angoulême, one of the very few members of her immediate family to survive the revolution at all. Despite marrying her cousin, the future Louis VI, and having no children of her own, she preserved a portion of her family's jewelry with evident care throughout decades of political upheaval and repeated exile across Europe, eventually passing it to a niece rather than letting it disperse or be sold off piecemeal, a single quiet decision that determined the fate of these specific objects for the next 2 centuries. Later generations of the Bourbon-Parma family, including Archduchess Maria Anna of Austria and her husband Prince Elias of Bourbon-Parma, continued adding to and wearing the collection well into the 20th century, ensuring it remained a living, worn set of jewelry rather than a static archive locked away untouched. Right up until the family finally chose to part with it in 2018. That decision, made by descendants several generations removed from either Marie Antoinette or Madame Royale, reflects a pattern common to many old aristocratic families. A collection assembled and preserved out of genuine sentiment by one generation eventually becomes, for a later generation with different priorities, financial circumstances, or simply less personal connection to the individual pieces, an asset better realized through sale than continued private safekeeping. The event that finally brought this centuries-old private collection into public view was the royal jewels from the Bourbon-Parma family sale, held by Sotheby's in Geneva on 14 November 2018. Billed by the auction house as one of the most important royal jewelry collections ever to appear on the open market, the sale offered 100 separate lots, ranging from individual brooches and rings to complete parures and dynastic honors, almost all of which had remained continuously within the same family since they were first acquired or commissioned. In some cases, more than 200 years earlier. Ahead of the sale, several of the most significant pieces were exhibited publicly in Milan, Munich, Cologne, and London, allowing collectors and the merely curious an unprecedented look at jewelry that, in several cases, had not been seen outside the family in roughly 200 years. Generating a wave of international press coverage well before the auction itself even began, with images of the Marie Antoinette pieces circulating in newspapers and magazines around the world months ahead of the sale date. Sotheby's had initially estimated the entire sale would realize somewhere in the region of $7 million in total, a relatively modest figure by the standards of the house's major jewelry sales, reflecting a cautious approach to pricing objects whose value depended so heavily on subjective historical association rather than straightforward gemological worth. Every single lot sold on the night, an unusually strong result even by the standards of high-profile single-owner sales. And the final total came to roughly $53 million, more than 7 times the pre-sale estimate, driven overwhelmingly by explosive bidding on the small handful of pieces with a documented connection to Marie Antoinette herself, whose 10 lots alone accounted for tens of millions of dollars of the evening's total. Dramatically outperforming even the sale's other historically significant categories, including the Duke of Angoulême's chivalric honors and Archduchess Maria Anna's 20th century Austrian pieces. The scale of the price gap between estimate and result matters because it reveals something specific about how the market for royal jewelry actually values these objects, not primarily for their raw gemological worth, which auction house specialists can estimate with reasonable precision based on carat weight, clarity, and craftsmanship, but for their historical and emotional association with figures whose stories continue to resonate centuries later. Marie Antoinette's pearl pendant, for instance, was assessed by Sotheby's own gemologists as being worth somewhere between $1 and $2 million, purely as a physical object. A large natural pearl, however fine, is still a natural pearl. And even exceptional specimens rarely command 8-figure sums on gemological merit alone. That the same object ultimately sold for 18 times that estimate demonstrates, in the clearest possible terms, that collectors were not simply buying a pearl, they were buying a fragment of one of the most famous personal stories in European history. Verified through an unusually well-documented chain of ownership stretching back to the exact night the French monarchy began to collapse, a chain of custody few comparable objects can claim with the same degree of confidence. This sale also mattered because of what it demonstrated about the broader market for historic jewelry more generally. Before this auction, the record for the most valuable single sale of royal jewelry had stood for more than 3 decades, set by the 1987 sale of the Duchess of Windsor's collection, which raised just over $50 million and had, until this point, been treated by the industry as something close to an unbeatable benchmark for celebrity and royal provenance jewelry. The Bourbon-Parma sale did not simply match that record, it comfortably surpassed it, signaling that appetite among the world's wealthiest collectors for objects with genuine, verifiable royal provenance had, if anything, grown stronger over the intervening decades rather than fading with time, even as the political relevance of hereditary monarchy itself has continued to decline across much of the world. For auction houses and historians alike, the sale offered rare, concrete evidence of exactly how much collectors are willing to pay for history they can hold in their hands, rather than simply read about in a book, and it likely reshaped how future royal jewelry sales are priced and marketed for years afterward. Beyond the financial record-keeping, the sale also carried a quieter significance for historians of material culture. It offered an unusually complete, single-family case study of how jewelry moves through 2.5 centuries of European upheaval, revolution, empire, exile, restoration, and eventual private dispersal, all traceable through one continuous line of inheritance rather than the more typical patchwork of confiscation, resale, and lost documentation that affects most comparably old royal collections. That completeness is itself a genuinely rare historical resource, one auction houses, museums, and gemologists are likely to keep citing as a reference case for decades to come. Not every aspect of this sale was free of controversy or unresolved tension. Some cultural commentators and French historians publicly question whether jewelry this closely tied to Marie Antoinette and the pre-revolutionary French monarchy ought to have been sold to private collectors at all, rather than acquired by a national museum where it could remain permanently accessible to the public rather than disappearing into an anonymous private collection, quite possibly never to be publicly exhibited again. The irony of objects so bound up with the story of a monarchy overthrown in the name of ordinary French citizens ending up purchased, in several cases, by anonymous private bidders rather than a public institution was not lost on some observers, who noted the strange historical symmetry of jewels smuggled out of a besieged royal palace eventually being auctioned for tens of millions of dollars too. Buyers whose identities the public would likely never learn, The Bourbon-Parma family, for its part, had every legal right to sell property that had genuinely remained in its possession for over 2 centuries, and the family reportedly used the proceeds partly to support charitable causes. But the tension between private ownership and public historical interest is a real one that this sale, like many before it, never fully resolved, and is unlikely to be resolved by any single sale in the future either. There is also a more practical kind of uncertainty running through parts of the sale's own record. At least one significant piece from the collection, a ruby and diamond brooch designed around 1900, went to auction with a clearly published estimate of $200,000 to $300,000, yet no final confirmed hammer price for that specific lot appears in most published accounts of the sale, an unusual gap for an auction otherwise extensively documented and reported in granular, detailed down to individual carat weights and jeweler signatures. Small gaps like this are not uncommon in auction reporting, particularly for lots that sell privately after the public sale or that generate less press interest than headline items, but they are a useful reminder that even a meticulously documented sale like this one does not always leave behind a perfectly complete public record for every single lot, and that the historical record of even a landmark auction can still contain small, unresolved blanks decades later. A final, subtler tension concerns authentication itself. Provenance claims stretching back 2 centuries, however well supported by family archives and inherited documentation, ultimately rest on a chain of written and oral testimony that, by definition, cannot be independently verified with the same certainty as a modern receipt or contract. Auction houses handling sales of this kind employ specialist historians and gemologists precisely to scrutinize such claims as rigorously as possible, cross-referencing portraits, inventories, and correspondence. But the very fact that a pearl estimated conservatively at under $2 million could sell for $36 million on the strength of its documented history shows just how much weight the market places on provenance claims that, however carefully researched, remain historical narratives rather than laboratory verifiable facts. Among the pieces that generated the most attention that November evening was Archduchess Marie Anna's sapphire cluster brooch, centered on a striking 31-carat Sri Lankan sapphire surrounded by 12 brilliant cut diamonds. Its design closely echoing the famous Albert brooch style associated with Royal Victorian jewellery, though this particular piece carried its own distinct history. Gifted in 1903 by Princess Isabella of Krö to her daughter Maria Anna of Austria to mark the Archduchess's marriage into the Bourbon-Parma family, the brooch was noted in family records as doubling as a clasp for a pearl necklace. Described by Maria Anna herself, according to surviving family archives, simply as her mother's gift. It sold for approximately $551,000. A related piece, a fancy orangey pink diamond ring set with a rare 2.44 carat colored stone encircled by colorless diamonds, was given in 1909 by Archduke Friedrich of Austria to his daughter, the same Maria Anna. To mark the birth of her son Prince Robert, it sold for roughly $574,000, a strong result for a colored diamond of that size, reflecting the continued rarity and desirability of naturally tinted stones at auction. Princess Maria Theresa's diamond girandole earrings, commissioned in the 19th century for Marie Therese de Savoie, Duchess of Parma, before passing down to her grandson Robert, Duke of Parma, offered a particularly fine example of period craftsmanship, each earring set with 5 cushion-cut diamonds leading to 3 pear-shaped drops, 8 diamonds in total per earring, mounted in a fitted case signed by the jeweler Fawcett, one of the leading Parisian houses of the period. When offered at auction, the earrings realized close to $730,000, a result the auction house cited as clear evidence that fine antique craftsmanship, independent of any single famous name attached to a piece, still commands serious money among specialist collectors. The Bourbon-Parma diamond demi-parure carried an equally layered history. its diamonds having previously adorned the Duke of Berry, the Duchess of Angoulême, and Princess Isabella of Croix across different points in the 19th century, before being assembled into a cohesive suite comprising a riviere necklace of cushion-cut diamonds with detachable pear-shaped pendants, a matching brook that doubled as a necklace clasp, and a pair of earrings. Each stone set in delicate pinched collets designed to maximize brilliance, the adaptable multi-configuration design was a hallmark of 19th century aristocratic jewelry, allowing a single suite to be reworked for numerous different occasions, and the demi-parure ultimately sold for close to $848,000. Among the tiaras, Archduchess Marie Anna's fleur-de-lis tiara stood out as a particular showpiece created in 1912 by the Austrian jeweler Julius Hübner, its intricate milligrain setting shimmering with cushion, pear, and rose-cut diamonds, with its three largest fleur-de-lis motifs designed to detach and convert into standalone brooches using additional fittings supplied with the piece. A level of practical versatility that made such tiaras genuinely useful pieces of everyday aristocratic wardrobe rather than purely ceremonial objects worn once and stored away. Worn by Maria Anna as the wife of Prince Elias, Duke of Parma, the tiara's fleur-de-lis motif directly referenced the historic emblem of the French monarchy, symbolizing the Bourbon-Parma family's enduring dynastic connection to the French throne their ancestors had once occupied, even generations after that throne itself had ceased to exist in any political sense. It sold for close to $967,000. A separate tiara from the same era, sometimes referred to informally by collectors by the name of its distinctive foliate scroll design, featured pav and collet set diamonds crafted during the Austro-Hungarian imperial period, with a detachable central cluster and side motifs adding further versatility, and was housed in its original fitted case bearing the maker's name. It too realized a price well into six figures, cementing the sale's tiaras collectively as among its strongest performing categories outside the headline Marie Antoinette lots. The Duke of Angouleme's royal honors brought an entirely different category of object to the sale, not personal adornment, but the physical regalia of dynastic and chivalric order created around 1820. During the period of the Bourbon Restoration, when the family briefly regained the French throne after Napoleon's defeat, his Order of the Holy Spirit badge, set with diamonds and emeralds, and featuring a ruby-tipped dove of the Holy Spirit mounted against a Maltese cross, sold for roughly $1,623,000, while his separate Order of the Golden Fleece, its ribbon carrier holding a diamond laurel wreath, leading to an 8.90-carat sapphire flintstone, and finally, the Order's iconic golden fleece pendant, backed in richly textured gold, sold for approximately $1,682,000, together forming two of the sale's highest results outside the Marie Antoinette lot specifically. These orders carried a different kind of historical weight than the brooches and tiaras around them, representing not simply wealth or taste, but formal dynastic recognition passed down through some of Europe's oldest chivalric institutions, the Order of the Golden Fleece in particular dating back to the 15th century Duchy of Burgundy and ranking among the most exclusive honors in European history, reserved almost exclusively for reigning monarchs and their closest relatives. The Marie Antoinette lots inevitably dominated the evening, together accounting for close to $43 million of the sale's $53 million total. A striking illustration of just how disproportionately a single owner's fame can shape an entire auction's results. Her 18th century diamond bow brooch, featuring a large pear-shaped yellow diamond pendant added at a later date, sold for close to $2,997,000, while a separate historic diamond brooch set with cushion-shaped and circular cut diamonds, its central cluster detachable and housed in a case stamped with the Hübner name, added further evidence of the Queen's taste for versatile, reconfigurable jewelry designs that could be adapted across multiple formal occasions rather than worn in only one fixed configuration. Her diamond and pearl pendant a luminous oval diamond, crowning a delicate diamond bow, from which hung a large Baroque natural pearl. Originally clasped to her famed 3-strand pearl necklace carried the most dramatic story of the entire sale. Smuggled out of France during the Revolution, passed down through Madame Royale and eventually into Bourbon-Parma hands, and unseen in public for roughly 2 centuries before its rediscovery. Estimated conservatively at under $2 million. It shattered every expectation to sell for a staggering $36 million, becoming both the single most valuable lot of the night and a new world record for any pearl ever sold at auction, easily surpassing the previous record held by a necklace once owned by the actress Elizabeth Taylor. Finally, a ruby and diamond brooch designed around 1900 by the French jeweler Boucheron. It's 89-carat cushion-shaped ruby framed by circular cut and rose-cut diamonds in a delicate bow motif, with a detachable central cluster capable of transforming the piece into a pendant, brooch, or hair comb, carried a published estimate between $200,000 and $300,000, though its precise final hammer price was not widely reported. In the years since the November 2018 sale, the individual pieces from this collection have scattered into private hands around the world, following the ordinary pattern of high-value jewelry auctions, some bought by established collectors of royal memorabilia, others acquired anonymously through agents bidding on behalf of undisclosed buyers. A common practice at this level of the market, precisely because owning objects this famous can attract unwanted attention, from media scrutiny to security concerns to simple social pressure to display or lend a piece the owner might prefer to keep entirely private. Unlike the pieces that ended up at institutions such as the Victoria and Albert Museum and comparable aristocratic collections, nothing from the Bourbon-Parma sale is known to have been acquired by a public museum at the point of sale, meaning that, for now at least, these particular jewels are considerably less likely to be seen again by the general public than pieces that took a different path into institutional hands during their original dispersal. That said, jewelry this historically significant rarely disappears from view permanently. Pieces with documented royal provenance of this caliber tend to resurface periodically at future auctions, loaned occasionally for major exhibitions, or eventually gifted or bequeathed to museums by private owners seeking to secure their own legacy alongside the object's history, a pattern seen. Repeatedly with other historically important jewels that first entered private hands before eventually finding their way into public collections. Decades later, sometimes through a subsequent owner's estate planning, sometimes through a museum's own persistent efforts at acquisition, once a piece resurfaces on the market again. Given the exceptional press attention and record-breaking prices generated by this particular sale, it seems likely that whoever currently owns pieces like Marie Antoinette's pearl pendant will eventually face considerable pressure, whether from historians, museums, or simply the pull of prestige that comes with public association, to allow the piece to be exhibited again at some point, even if it remains privately owned in the meantime. There is also a strong possibility that pieces from this sale will themselves become benchmark reference points for future auctions of comparable material, the way the 1987 Duchess of Windsor sale served as a pricing and marketing reference for this very auction 3 decades later. Any future sale of jewelry connected to a similarly mythologized historical figure, whether another deposed European royal house or a documented piece connected to a famous historical woman more broadly, will likely be measured, explicitly or implicitly, against the $36 million benchmark this pearl pendant established. Meaning the ripple effects of this single November evening in Geneva are likely to keep shaping how the auction market prices historical provenance for a long time to come. A queen who lost her head to a revolution ended up, more than 2 centuries later, causing a very different kind of frenzy in a quiet auction room in Geneva, proof that even after losing everything else, Marie Antoinette's jewelry still had the power to make history and to make a room full of the world's wealthiest collectors briefly forget their own carefully prepared budgets. Given that a single pearl once worn by a doomed 18th century queen sold for 18 times its estimated value, while a similarly historic ruby brooch's final price barely made the news, What do you think really determines whether a piece of royal jewelry becomes priceless in the eyes of collectors, or simply valuable the beauty of the object itself, or the story that happens to be attached to it?